The Omega didn't beg. She smiled, then accepted her rejection. And the hall itself forgot how to breathe. When the Alpha King said, "I reject you," the marble trembled. When she whispered, "Then I accept," the sacred torches died. His control snapped like glass, and the ancient stones remembered something they were forbidden to know. What did she awaken that even the moon turned away? Would you accept rejection if it meant awakening the very thing that could destroy a king? Tell me in the comments below. And if your heart still beats for forbidden bonds and alpha kings who lose control, subscribe. And join the kingdom before the next moon rises. The torches of the high hall burned blue, the sacred color of denial. Every noble and priest in Althera stood gathered to witness the rejection rite. The Omega chosen for humiliation knelt at the center, her wrists bound by silver thread. Serenia Valora, the girl whose father had been branded a heretic, was offered to the crown as penance for sins not her own. Above her, King Calith Draven sat upon the throne of moonstone and ash, his eyes like tempered gold, unblinking. The room bowed when he rose. The air seemed to tighten around his words. The seer's voice trembled through the chamber. By law of blood and moon, the Alpha King shall reject, and balance shall be restored. The marble hummed beneath the crowd's feet. Faint, rhythmic, almost sentient. The torches bent toward Serenia, as if the flames themselves pitied her. Calith took a breath that shook the silver chains at his wrists. He was not meant to feel anything for the one he would cast away. But he did. Something in her scent, her silence, her defiant stillness, cut deeper than prophecy. It wasn't attraction, it was memory. "I reject you," the king said, his voice low and deliberate. The words hung heavy in the hall, swallowed by a pause too long for comfort. The marble cracked, just slightly. The seer looked up, eyes wide. Serenia's throat worked as she stood, pale fire in her eyes. "Then I accept." 3 words, no tremor, no plea. They echoed against the dome like prayer turned weapon. The crowd gasped. The torches screamed blue-white, then went dark. At first, it was only silence. Then the silence broke. The pulse beneath the marble became a roar. The glass dome splintered overhead as the moonlight poured through, white and cold as judgment. Calith staggered forward, one hand at his chest, the other gripping the throne. His skin burned with silver fire. His control, the leash forged by ancient oaths, disintegrated. He met Serenia's eyes once, as if seeing her for the first time. Then the beast within him answered the call she never knew she made. The high hall trembled. The nobles fell to their knees. And, as the world tilted between man and God, one truth burned through the silence. The Omega had accepted her rejection, and the king had lost his soul. The silence after the explosion felt alive. Moonlight sifted through the shattered dome in thin, trembling threads, catching in the dust that floated where once there had been worship. Every noble pressed against the walls, too afraid to breathe, too bound by awe to run. At the center of the ruin stood the king. Calith Draven's crown had slipped sideways. One hand still clutched the arm of his sundered throne. His eyes, once a tempered gold, burned silver now, light pouring through cracks in flesh that could no longer contain what stirred beneath. The air carried a low vibration, a growl without sound. The marble beneath his feet darkened, spiderwebbing from where he stood as if the palace itself recoiled from him. Then came the first sound, an exhale that wasn't human. Calith staggered forward, breath shallow, jaw clenched. He pressed a hand to his chest, where the sigil of his crown still glowed faintly through torn fabric. The power that had once obeyed him now pulled like tide against the shore, relentless. The seer, Eldran Morwen, crawled closer, robe scorched by the light. "Majesty," he rasped, eyes wide and wet. "Her aura, it is of the first bond." His voice shook. The words spread through the court like wind through glass, half heard, half believed. The first bond was legend, a link forged before kingdoms. When wolves still spoke with gods, Calith's head snapped toward Serenia Velora. She stood unburned in the wreckage, pale light tracing her outline. The silver ash from the torches gathered around her bare feet, curling like mist seeking its source. Her eyes met his. He saw no fear there, only recognition, terrible and calm. Eldran's voice broke again. "Majesty, she has awakened what the moon sealed in you." A muscle jumped in Calith's jaw. For a heartbeat, something human surfaced in his gaze. Grief, disbelief, longing, and then the beast surged. His breath came faster. Claws split through his fingertips. The silver light crawling up his arms hardened into scales that gleamed like liquid armor. The nearest noble screamed. A guard unsheathed his blade but dropped it at once. The weapon hissed and melted when Calith's aura brushed the steel. "Leave," the king said. The word wasn't shouted. It was command-made sound, divine and absolute. The crowd scattered, as if torn by invisible claws. Only Eldran and Serenia remained, the old seer on his knees, the girl standing at the eye of a storm she had called without intent. The throne cracked further, as Calith forced himself upright. Each breath scraped like stone on stone. He turned to the seer, his voice a whisper strangled by pain. "Take them, out." "Majesty, out." The word detonated. The remaining guards fled with the others, dragging the seer with them, robes sweeping dust through moonlight. The great doors slammed of their own accord, echoing until nothing but heartbeat and wind remained. Calith was alone, with her. He sank to one knee, silver light still crawling over his skin like wildfire. When he spoke, his voice was rough, fractured, almost a growl. "You've woken something I was sworn to bury." Serenia took one step toward him, the air tightening between them, the moon outside flickering as if listening. She wanted to speak, but the words dissolved on her tongue. The beast within him answered first. His eyes lifted, bright, feral, endless, and the hall, once holy, began to tremble again. The king kneels before the girl he tried to destroy. His body no longer his own, his beast no longer silent. Light came first, sharp, cold, and endless. Then came the silence, not the sacred kind that follows awe, but the hollow kind that follows power. When Serenia opened her eyes, the world was transparent. She lay upon a bed carved from a single sheet of crystal. The walls surrounding her shimmered, translucent as frozen smoke, reflecting not her image but her emotions. When fear flickered through her, the walls darkened. When she exhaled, threads of silver rippled outward like water stirred by breath. It was not a room. It was a mirror. Serenia sat up slowly. Her wrists were no longer bound, yet the weight of those vanished chains still lingered in her muscles. She remembered the hall, the shattered glass, the moonlight bleeding through, the king collapsing beneath his own divinity. Then, nothing. Her lips parted. Where am I? The question hung in the air, and the walls shimmered in response, echoing her voice like a second heartbeat. Across the chamber, a shape stirred. It was only a shadow at first, tall, still, and patient. Then the light bent, revealing the unmistakable outline of Calith Draven, standing just beyond the transparent barrier. He watched her with eyes the color of molten silver, but there was no anger in them now. Only the heavy quiet of control regained at a terrible cost. "You live," he said at last, his voice low, strained. The hall nearly didn't. Serenia swallowed. "You brought me here?" His gaze flicked to the walls. "It was that, or let what you woke consume half my court." She rose to her feet, her reflection scattered around her, fragments of self multiplying, one afraid, one furious, one calm. "So now I'm a prisoner?" Calith didn't deny it. "You're safer this way." Her breath hitched. "From you?" He said nothing. The silence between them lengthened until it felt physical. Then the air shifted. The faint hum she'd felt beneath the marble of the hall returned, resonating through the crystal floor. Serenia pressed her palm to it. "It's alive," she whispered. Calith's expression tightened. "It reacts to what you feel." The room pulsed faintly, mirroring the slow beat of her heart. "And what do you feel, my king?" she asked, voice soft but steady. Something dangerous flickered behind his eyes. "Too much." He turned away. "You will stay here until I understand what you are. Eldraine believes you carry the echo of the first bond. If that's true, every law of this realm will break because of you." Serenia's voice dropped. "I didn't ask for this." "No," Calith said, facing her again, "but the moon did." The crystal barrier between them shimmered like liquid, and for an instant it felt as if their breaths aligned. She could see the strain in his shoulders, the faint tremor in his hands, signs of the power he still fought to contain. Then the seer's voice broke the quiet. "Majesty." Eldraine appeared behind him, bent and pale, clutching a staff of light. His eyes, still half blind from what he had witnessed, turned toward Serenia's chamber. "If she remembers who she is," the old man whispered, "the veil will thin again. And next time, it will not stop with your hall." Calith's jaw tightened. "Then she will not remember." Eldraine bowed, but there was doubt in his trembling voice. "Memory is not a command, Majesty. It is a calling." The seer's words lingered even after he was gone. Calith's shadow remained for a while longer, silent and motionless before the glass. Then, without another word, he turned and left her alone in the luminous prison that breathed with her every thought. Serenia sank to her knees, eyes on the shimmering floor. Sleep came reluctantly, full of whispers and flickers of light. And in her dream, a great wolf carved from moonlight stepped from the fog and spoke her name. Valora. She woke gasping, the walls glowing white-hot around her. The seer's warning echoes through the citadel. If she remembers who she is, the veil will thin again. Dawn came grey over Althera, dragging its light like a blade across the ruins of the High Hall. Smoke still curled from cracked marble, and the sigils of power had yet to fade from the stones. But far above the scarred city, the Council of Northern Lords gathered beneath a different kind of shadow, one woven not by moonlight, but by ambition. The council hall was an arena of gold and cold iron, its walls hung with banners that once symbolized unity. Now they looked like veiled threats. Around the crescent table sat 10 of the realm's most powerful alphas, cloaked in silk and secrecy. At the center stood Tharos Veen, Calith's beta, a man forged of loyalty, tempered by envy. His jaw was sharp as his voice. "The king's control falters," Tharos said. "The beast broke through, witnessed by half the court, and the girl. She's no mere Omega," hissed Lord Halvin, his silver rings clinking as he leaned forward. The hall spoke her name before it shattered. "She's a threat," another added. Tharos let them argue, his gaze drifting toward the sealed windows. He could still feel the tremor from last night's eruption in his bones, the kind that only comes when old magic wakes. He had stood beside Calith for 10 years, fought wars, buried kings. Yet even he had never seen that. When silence fell, he spoke again, measured and cold. "Eldraine says she carries the blood of the first bond. If that's true, then her existence rewrites every oath we've ever sworn. The king's leash, the crown's balance, depends on that magic staying dead." A murmur rippled through the room. "Then she must die," said Halvin flatly. Tharos's lips curved, just slightly. "If she dies, so does he. The bond cuts both ways." "So we cage her," another lord spat. "The beast will still stir." Tharos stepped forward, voice low. "No, we use her." The words hung heavy, the kind that no one wanted to echo yet none could ignore. He turned toward the fire pit in the center of the chamber, its embers glowing faintly. "We bind her, not with chains, but with cause. Let her serve as the instrument to tether his beast. The king's curse becomes our weapon. You would dare bind royal blood to witchcraft? One of the elders gasped. Tharos's eyes glinted crimson in the firelight. I dare what must be done to keep a god on his throne. The others looked at each other. Fear and greed often hold hands, and that night they clasped tightly. From behind the curtain of flame, a presence stirred. A cloaked figure stepped forward. Eldren, the seer himself. His expression was unreadable. You tread close to sacrilege, Tharos Vine. Tharos bowed his head slightly. And you tread close to treason, old man. Tell me, does your prophecy favor the king or the girl? Eldren's blind eyes glowed faintly white. Neither. It favors the moon, and she no longer shines kindly upon us. The torches dimmed. A pulse ran through the chamber, faint, rhythmic, as if the moon itself had blinked. Eldren turned toward the window, his voice trembling. The omens change. The eclipse begins. The council surged to the balcony. Above Althera, the once pure moon had begun to darken, a sliver of blood shadow devouring its light. Tharos gripped the railing, the red reflection painting his face. So be it, he whispered. If the heavens want war, they shall have one. Behind him, the Lords muttered prayers that no longer sounded like faith. The crimson eclipse climbs fully over the sky, the first in 500 years, and its reflection catches in Tharos's eyes as he whispers, a king's fall begins not with rebellion, but with reason. The bells of the Temple of the Two Moons tolled like a heartbeat beneath the crimson sky. Every strike echoed through the veins of the kingdom, drawing wolves to howl and priests to kneel. The blood eclipse had risen fully now, painting Althera in the color of prophecy, the hue of endings. Inside the temple, the air shimmered with incense and fear. Silver ribs of bone arched overhead, carved from the remains of the celestial beasts, said to guard the moon goddess herself. Between them stood Calith Draven, no longer wearing his crown, but the tremor of his own restraint. Serenia knelt at the altar, her wrists ringed with faint light. Not chains this time, but sigils drawn in salt and moon water. Eldren's trembling voice filled the hall. Majesty, this ritual was never meant to bind gods to mortals. If the bond exists, suppress it, do not wake it. Calith's reply was a whisper that burned. It's already awake. The seer's eyes flicked to Serenia, and for the first time, pity softened his ancient features. Then you both will pay the price. The torches flickered blue. A current of power rippled through the temple floor, the same pulse that had haunted them since the rejection night. But here, beneath the double moons, now dyed red, it surged like a living tide. Serenia lifted her head. What happens if it can't be suppressed? Eldren's voice cracked. Then the veil shatters, and what lies beyond will rewrite the world. Calith approached her slowly, each step echoing like thunder in the sanctified chamber. You said once that you accepted my rejection, he murmured. You may not have known what that meant, but the bond you accepted accepts nothing less than truth. Serenia's breath trembled. Then say it, Calith. Say the truth. He looked at her, and for the first time since his coronation, there was no king in his eyes, only a man stripped bare before destiny. You are not my curse, he said. You are what I was created to protect, and what I failed to remember. Eldren's staff slammed into the floor, runes flaring. Majesty, the moons align, do it now. The chant began. The silver runes around Serenia ignited, spiraling upward into a column of light. Calith stepped inside the circle, his aura fusing with hers, two flames drawn together by gravity itself. The temple shook. The bones above them groaned. Eldren's voice rose to a roar. Suppress it! But the moonlight didn't dim. It exploded. The ritual turned inside out. Not suppression, but union. The veil between mortal and divine tore open, flooding the temple with liquid starlight. The air screamed, every sigil reversed, every rune inverted. Caliph and Serenia stood at the eye of the maelstrom, hands clasped, eyes locked, their forms dissolving into one radiant silhouette. "Tart, we are not separate," she whispered. "We never were," he answered. Outside, the blood moon fractured into twin orbs, one red, one white. The temple dome cracked from its base to its crown. Eldrayan fell to his knees weeping. The ecliptic bond, reborn. Then came the silence, the kind that follows creation. When the light cleared, Caliph and Serenia lay motionless amid the ruins, their hands still joined. The torches flickered out, one by one, and the last words of the seer carried into the darkness. Union births salvation and death alike. Their joined light cracks the temple's dome, and both collapse, lifeless. The eclipse had not yet faded when the rebellion began. Althera's sky bled crimson, and the earth below seemed to pulse in rhythm, a wounded heartbeat that no prayer could soothe. The Temple of the Two Moons lay in ruins, its once holy pillars reduced to shards of silver and bone. Beneath the rubble, whispers spread faster than truth. The king and the heretic girl were dead, but not everyone mourned. Far to the north, in the fortress city of Weinhold, banners unfurled against the storm. Crimson sigils of the wolf, twisted and inverted, fluttered over spires of black iron. At the balcony stood Tharos Veen, his cloak drawn tight, his gaze fixed on the bleeding sky. "The gods have fallen silent," he murmured, "which means their throne is empty." Behind him, the rebel lords waited, armor gleaming like oil-slicked steel. The hall was crowded with tension, lit only by braziers burning dark flame, moonfire stolen and corrupted from the royal crypts. Tharos turned to face them, his voice like a blade. "For centuries, the crown chained us to the moon's mercy. No more. The beast in our king has already broken its leash. The people fear what he has become. We will offer them what they crave most." "Order," hissed Lord Halvin, his eyes fever-bright. "Control," Tharos corrected, "through the Thorn Pact." He raised his hand, revealing a curved shard of silver-black stone, the lunar thorn, a relic pulled from the temple wreckage. It pulsed faintly, resonating with the eclipse itself. "Tonight," Tharos said, "we bleed with the moon. We seize the power they could not contain." The soldiers roared. The rebellion was born. Meanwhile, across the shattered plains south of the capital, the wind carried another kind of sound. A whisper, soft and human. Serenia's fingers twitched. She lay among fragments of moonstone, her body haloed by dim light. The air was heavy with ash and memory. Beside her, Caliph stirred, his chest rising shallowly, his face pale, but alive. The ritual had not killed them. It had changed them. When Serenia opened her eyes, the world shimmered in dual tones, red and silver overlaying each other like two realities colliding. Every breath hummed with the same pulse she had once felt beneath the hall's marble. "Caliph," she whispered. His eyelids fluttered open. For the first time, his aura was quiet, no longer tearing through him, but woven into hers. He looked at her, and in that fragile silence, recognition dawned. "We survived," he breathed. "No," she said softly, "we became." Outside, the sound of marching reached them, distant yet unrelenting. Caliph pushed himself upright, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. Through the fractured dome, he could see the banners of rebellion glinting like fire. "Tharos," he muttered, "he's moved faster than I thought." Serenia rose, her bare feet stepping onto cracked sigils that reignited under her touch. The power rippled outward, summoning faint shapes, wolves of light and shadow, drawn by her voice. Caliph froze. "Serenia, you're commanding them." She looked down at her hands, glowing faintly with twin colors. "They're not mine," she said. "They're ours." The wolves circled them, silent and waiting. The air thickened with ancient power, wild, unbound, listening. Caliph turned to her, the realization heavy in his tone. The bond merged more than souls. You carry half my strength now. And you, she replied quietly, carry half my heart. The first horn of war sounded across the valley. The moon's red light pulsed brighter, echoing the rhythm of the army advancing toward them. Caliph drew his blade, a relic of moonsteel that now shimmered with a ghostly white flame. Then we fight together, he said. Serenia stepped beside him, the wolves lining up in spectral formation. Together, she whispered. As the rebellion's army crested the ridge, thunder rolled not from the clouds, but from the power that rose between them, two beings once divided by divine law, now fused by defiance and love. The sky cracked open, and from the ruins of the temple, a single light erupted, a twin-colored flare that split the night in two. As their combined power ignites the battlefield, Serenia begins to outshine him, her aura expanding beyond control. Caliph stumbles, realizing that she now holds the balance of their bond. His last words before the scene fades. Serenia, stop, you'll tear the world apart. The battlefield still burned when the silence struck. Wolves, both flesh and spirit, lay among men, the scent of iron and ash mingling with moonlight. The red eclipse hung unmoving in the heavens, its light dimming to a bruised violet. Caliph stood at the center of the carnage, blade hanging limp at his side. His once golden eyes had dulled, flickering between human and something monstrous. Across the field, Serenia still shone, her aura a halo of fractured silver that bent the air around her. The bond between them, forged in defiance and fire, now pulsed with instability. He could feel it fracturing, her light rising as his dimmed, the energy they shared turning inward like a blade. Serenia, he shouted, voice rough, trembling. You have to stop. She turned toward him, moonfire dancing across her skin, veins glowing as though lit from within. If I stop, they'll die, she said, eyes on the wounded soldiers crawling through the rubble. You can't feel it anymore, Caliph, but I can. Every heartbeat, every scream, the moon hears me now. Her tone was calm, but her power surged uncontrollably. Lightning rippled from her fingertips, striking the ground in bursts of divine light. Caliph staggered forward. You're not saving them, you're consuming them. She flinched as though struck, but didn't back down. Then what am I supposed to be, if not the thing the gods made me to be? For the first time, the mighty Alpha King faltered. His hand trembled as he reached toward her, not as a ruler, but as a man. Be what you choose, not what they wrote into your blood. But the bond pulsed again, violently. The power tethered between them snapped taut. Caliph gasped, feeling her heartbeat hammer inside his chest. For a moment, their souls overlapped, love, fear, fury, and fate colliding like stars. And then something inside him broke. The curse he had carried, the beast bound by generations of divine law, tore loose. His body arched backward as a roar ripped through him, shaking the battlefield. His sword fell from his grasp as his form blurred, shifting between man and wolf, bone and fire. The soldiers dropped to their knees, whispering prayers that turned to screams. Serenia's tears caught light as she reached out to him, her voice breaking. Caliph, listen to me. You're still here. You're not your curse. But his eyes were no longer gold. They were lunar white, hollow, ancient, endless. He lunged. Her hand flared instinctively, not in defense, but in recognition. The bond surged once more, desperate, searching. It wasn't meant to cage or destroy. It was meant to unite. Then take it all, she whispered. Take everything, if it saves you. Moonlight poured from her palms, flooding his chest. The battlefield vanished beneath its brilliance. The wind howled, the earth cracked, and the gods themselves seemed to pause in awe. Caliph's roar turned to a cry, part pain, part surrender. When the light faded, the beast was gone. The king knelt in the ashes, human again, trembling. His armor smoked. His hands shook. In front of him, Serenia lay still, her pulse silent, her light extinguished. He gathered her into his arms, his voice barely a whisper. You shouldn't have done this. The wolves around them, spectral and mortal alike, bowed their heads. Even the eclipse dimmed, ashamed to watch. Then Caliph threw back his head and howled, not as king, not as god, but as a man broken beyond repair. The cry echoed across Althera, rippling through every bond, every beast, every heartbeat that still dared to beat beneath the blood moon. And in the heavens, the moon goddess turned her face away. Her body fades into silver dust in his arms as the moon veil cracks open above, a divine summons calling her soul to judgment. Caliph stands alone in the ruins, whispering through the tears, "If she walks the veil, then I will follow." Silence. Not the kind born from death, but from divinity. Serenia drifted in a world without time, where gravity had forgotten its duty and light moved like breath. Beneath her feet stretched an endless mirror of silver mist, the moon veil, the sacred realm between existence and erasure. Every sound felt distant, as though remembered from another life. The last thing she recalled was Caliph's voice, breaking as the world fell apart. Now only the echo remained, faint like a heartbeat fading through water. From the mist, a shape emerged, vast, radiant, feminine. The moon goddess, robed in flowing constellations, her face both young and ancient. Her eyes reflected all of Serenia's lives at once, the child of exile, the girl who was rejected, the woman who defied a king. "You walk where mortals do not belong," the goddess said. Her voice was neither cruel nor kind. It simply was, filling the space like gravity itself. "Why have you come?" Serenia bowed her head, though her soul trembled. "I didn't come, I was taken." The goddess's gaze sharpened. "No, you chose. When you accepted rejection, you accepted awakening. When you bound your heart to the king, you bound yourself to the curse. Choice weaves destiny, child. Do you still claim ignorance?" Serenia's throat ached. "I didn't mean to destroy the balance. I only meant to save him." The goddess's tone softened. "And yet you did both." Behind her, the silver mist rippled, and in it, shapes formed. Memories. The high hall aflame, the seer weeping in moonlight, Caliph collapsing, his beast subdued, the world held together by a single broken bond. The goddess gestured, and a second path appeared, narrow, black as obsidian, cutting through the veil like a scar. "There are two roads, Serenia Violora. Walk one, and return to your world, but only if you forgive the man who doomed you. Walk the other, and ascend beyond it, leaving all behind, but if you refuse both..." The mist stirred. 1,000 trapped souls wailed in the distance. "Then you will fade into the silence between moons." Serenia closed her eyes. Forgive Caliph? How could she forgive the king who had humiliated her, rejected her, and in that rejection, rewritten her fate? And yet, hadn't he also fallen for her, fought beside her, died for her? Her chest ached with the memory of his voice, hoarse, desperate. "If she walks the veil, I will follow." The air trembled. Another figure appeared at the edge of the mirror. Caliph Draven, stripped of his crown, his mortal form flickering with strain. His eyes found hers immediately. He didn't speak. He simply walked forward, defying the divine pull that tried to keep him back. Each step left cracks of light in the silver floor. "Caliph," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks, "you shouldn't be here." "I told you," he said, voice low, raw. "Where you go, I go." The goddess watched silently, her gaze unreadable. "You would offer your soul, King of Althera?" Caliph knelt before Serenia, the air around him shimmering with heat and pain. "It's already hers." For the first time, something like sorrow crossed the goddess's face. "Love that defies the law of creation always ends in loss. Do you accept that?" Caliph met her gaze. "We already did." The goddess extended both hands, her voice echoing across eternity. "Then hear my decree. One life for both, or the world forgets you. Choose." Serenia turned to Caliph, trembling. "If one of us must die—" He silenced her with a touch. "Then it will be me." But she shook her head fiercely. "No, not again. Not this time." The goddess's voice rose like thunder. "Decide. The veil cannot hold two hearts that beat as one." Serenia closed her eyes. The light between them pulsed, stronger, brighter, until the entire realm shook. "Then let the world remember us," she whispered, "as one heart, not two." Their hands joined. Light engulfed them. The mirror cracked from horizon to horizon, spilling divine radiance into the darkness beyond. For a single moment, the veil burned with color, red and silver intertwining, life and death entwined. Then the light vanished. The goddess's voice fades as the veil collapses, leaving behind a whisper carried through creation. Balance restored, but not forever. In the mortal realm, a beam of moonlight pierces the clouds above the ruined high hall. Two figures lie at its center, breathless, glowing faintly, neither dead nor alive. The dawn that followed was not golden. It was silver, soft, unearthly, and alive. The high hall of Althera, once shattered by divine rage, now stood reborn beneath the restored full moon. The air itself trembled with the memory of divinity, as if the heavens had laid their hands upon the stones to mend them. Where cracks once crawled through marble, threads of luminous silver now ran like veins of living light. At the center of that sanctified hall, upon the dais where rejection had once been spoken, two forms lay side by side. A king and an omega who had defied both gods and prophecy. Serenia Valora awoke first. Her breath trembled as it left her lips, carrying a glow that danced faintly in the air. When her eyes opened, they were no longer mortal blue, but haloed in twin shades, moon silver and dusk gold. She felt her heart beating. But it echoed, as if another heart answered from within her chest. She turned. Calith Draven lay beside her, his face serene, his hand still clasping hers as though death itself had never pried it apart. Slowly he stirred, inhaling as if waking from 1,000 lifetimes. When his eyes opened, they met hers, no longer the fiery gold of command, but deep silver threaded with warmth. They rose together. No words, only breath and wonder. The hall, sensing its sovereigns, exhaled light. From every balcony and corridor, courtiers and soldiers knelt in stunned silence. The bells of the citadel tolled not in mourning, but in awe. For the first time in centuries, both the moon and the crown shone in harmony. The seer Eldran Morwyn stepped forward, leaning upon his staff, tears tracing the lines of his ageless face. Two hearts bound as one, two souls reborn through the trial. The balance the gods abandoned, you restored. Serenia looked to the gathered lords and wolves, her voice soft yet resonant. No throne stands on fear. No bond thrives on chains. The age of dominance ends. The age of harmony begins. Calith's voice joined hers, lower but steady. The moon will no longer rule over men, nor men over the moon. From this day, we reign as one, not above, but beside. The wolves, spectral and mortal, howled in unison, their song rising through the open dome like a vow. The moonlight flared, cascading across the realm as if sealing the promise. From the shadows near the great doors, Tharos Veen appeared, armor scorched and eyes hollow from defeat. His army lay scattered, his rebellion extinguished by the dawn. Yet instead of the gallows, he found himself kneeling before the very ones he sought to overthrow. Serenia descended the dais, her bare feet leaving luminous prints upon the marble. She stopped before him. "Do you seek forgiveness?" Tharos bowed his head. "I seek silence. But if forgiveness still has a voice, let it speak." She placed her hand upon his brow, light spilling from her palm. "Then be free of your shadow," she whispered. "And rise only when your heart remembers the light." When she withdrew, the mark of the thorn, the sigil of rebellion, faded from his skin, replaced by the symbol of unity, two moons intertwined. Theros wept quietly, the sound lost in the temple's echoes. That night, under the full restored moon, the ecliptic coronation was held. No priest presided, no gods interfered. Serenia and Caliph crowned each other. The gesture was simple, sacred, and final. The seer's voice carried across the gathered realm. Behold the first dual sovereigns of moon and man. The ecliptic reign begins. And with that declaration, the heavens answered. A storm of silver petals descended from the sky, swirling through the hall like snow. Wolves lifted their muzzles and howled. Humans raised torches and knelt. For a moment, the boundaries between species, rank, and blood dissolved. Caliph looked at Serenia, a faint smile curving his lips. Do you think the gods will forgive us? She met his gaze, her fingers brushing his. If they remember what love is, perhaps. He chuckled softly. And if they don't? Then we'll teach them, she said. Weeks passed. The realm healed. The seas calmed. The wolves roamed under open skies without fear. But peace, as always, is fragile. One night, as the wind moved through the high spires of the citadel, Serenia awoke to a strange stillness. The moon outside her window shimmered oddly, a faint flicker, like a candle unsure of its flame. She rose and stepped onto the balcony, the cool air wrapping around her. Behind her, Caliph stirred, half asleep. Can't rest, he murmured. She didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed skyward. The moon pulsed once, then dimmed, just slightly. Caliph came to stand beside her, his hand finding hers. It's nothing, he said gently. The world always trembles before it learns how to be still. But as the light wavered again, Serenia whispered, almost to herself, No, it's remembering. Caliph frowned. Remembering what? She turned to him, her eyes glinting with silver fire. That balance never lasts forever. And as they stood together beneath the waning moon, the heavens sighed. A soft, haunting sound that echoed across eternity. The peace held, but far beyond the stars, something stirred once more. Ancient, hoshent, inevitable. As calm returns, the moon flickers once more. A whisper carried on the wind. When the light dims again, so shall the king's control.